Business as Unusual is a thought-provoking podcast that explores the innovative strategies, disruptive ideas, and unconventional practices driving successful leaders and companies in the ever-evolving world of modern business. Subscribe, comment, and share for weekly inspiration with our host, Aicila.
Welcome to this episode of Business as Unusual. Today, we're diving into the world of creative flow, inner alignment, and the power of embracing vulnerability with our guest Brent, also known as Realm Seeker, a multidisciplinary creator with a background in psychology, music, education, and solo RPG world building. We'll explore why creativity is about the journey, not just the outcome, how giving up trying can lead to your best ideas, and why authentic connection matters more than chasing algorithms. Stick around for practical tips on preventing burnout, building creative confidence, and finding community as you bring your unique projects to life. Welcome to Business as Unusual. Today I am with Brent, also known as Realm Seeker, and they are a postgraduate psychology student turned multidisciplinary creator with over 30 years in music, 10 years in education, and over 7 years in solo RPG world building, role-playing games. He now blends audio, writing, and visual art to build immersive creative experiences rooted in visionary fiction and spiritual creativity. Brent's work explores flow, inner alignment, and the quiet magic of showing up. Thank you. Welcome to the show, Brent.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to share some of my thoughts with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you bring some of these different perspectives out for folks. So I'll dive right in and ask, is there something you wish more people knew about being creative?
This is something I've explored throughout my life. I recently, in the last few years, discovered that I have other aspects of creativity like visual art and actually writing. And most of my life, I had this narrative telling myself, I can't draw because I'm not a trained artist, or my drawings are really squiggly and nothing to take serious. And just a quick story of how it happened is one day I just decided to trace one of my son's abstract splatter paintings. I saw some patterns. Sometimes when you look at clouds, you can see kind of some patterns. And I just started tracing, and I just found myself doing it all day, all night, 7 days a week. And I found out too, my uncle is an abstract artist, painter. So he suggested I try that. And I just felt completely in love with just the act of creating and just experimenting. And like my goal was to get into what I would call the flow state, into where, where I'm creating and I completely forget about my regular life or paying bills and things I have to do. And I'm just really, really focused into this moment. And that's taken some work for me to work on. And to also the challenge for me has been like how to share my art with people, because it's one thing to make it and enjoy it for myself, but sharing it with other people online and stuff is something I've struggled with over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel vulnerable. And something that you said in our pre-chat was that some of your best ideas came when you gave up trying. And I thought that was an interesting perspective. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think a good quote to go through in life is to expect the unexpected. And some of the best examples I can think of is going back to my music days. It transfers to other forms of creativity, but we used to do jam sessions where I would be playing with a couple other musicians and we'd be practicing, and we would record ourselves on a little cassette tape. And then after the jam session, we'd be listening to it. And a few times, one of us made a mistake. But then as we listened to it over and over again, it kind of grew on us and ended up becoming the hook to the actual song and getting developed. And this has happened throughout, where I found myself starting a project, like with my solo RPG, for example, which I got into around 2020. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's a very interesting art form because you are doing this by yourself, but there's so much potential. But as I got into it and started learning the rules and the mechanics, I quickly got pulled away into world building, where I just got fascinated in terms of building different factions and cultures. And so one thing can lead to another. And that's a challenge for me because I just love learning new things. And so I have to kind of prioritize what I'm going to share and whatnot.
Yeah. So you talk a little bit about alignment over algorithm and the energy behind the work. So spiritual practices for creative sustainability. And burnout's a real thing. So can you share a couple of tips or tricks or things that you kind of people can get a sense of what you mean by that?
Sure. A book that I recommend would be The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. It's not a traditional book that you read cover to cover. It has 12 chapters in it. And the premise of the book is that creativity is very interchangeable with spirituality. And so a lot of creators are, you could say, like recovering or trying to unlock their creativity. And a lot of people go through life thinking that maybe one day they'll do this dream project, or when I have extra time, I will do X, Y, and Z. And as I read the book and reread it, I just realized how passionate I am about creativity. And I guess this is a challenge, I would say, but when I was first creating, I just put no pressure on myself. It was just experimentation. And for me, it was more about the actual process than the end product, because I just got so much value out of creating that I would be working on multiple paintings at a time. And as soon as I finished one, I would jump into another one. I didn't really want to post it or talk about it. I just wanted to keep creating and making more things. And I think another challenge is just to be like authentic and not worry about, I need to do a certain technique that's popular, or this is going to get me more attention if I go this route. It's very challenging because part of the creative process is failing over and over again and learning from those failures. And a lot of people don't want to publicly fail or admit that, yes, this was a mistake, and then I went from here and moved on to another thing. And
I certainly don't like that.
Right.
That's very vulnerable and uncomfortable.
Yeah, right. And I guess the other thing too is just through the experimentation, kind of finding what I like and don't like. And I would share that I have found myself doing things that I would not visualize myself doing. I mean, I've surprised myself. Just a quick example, when I started getting into world building and I came across this challenge of how do I name places, or how do I name characters or a different species? And there's lots of different ways you can go about it, but I got so passionate about this. I would be like in bed with a notebook next to me, an idea would come and I'd be jotting it down. I would find myself going through these random name generators for hours and hours and just picking off the few that I really enjoyed. And so I guess I could share that as well, is that if you find yourself looking forward, which, oh my gosh, that's such an amazing thing. Like I would wake up in the morning, or I still do wake up in the morning, and one of the first thoughts I have is, how much time do I have today to work on my creative stuff? Like I really, on the other hand, the other challenge can be where there's the other aspect of being a creative artist is the, communication, marketing, and a lot of areas that are not comfort zones for me. But, it's a process, but that's something I've kind of been trying to get some help with. And I'm actually I've done quite a bit just to share. Like I had a podcast back in 2019 that I did for a while. I've done an art website. I have now a solo RPG world building website. And I used to play in bands and I used to record music. And I honestly too, I was not super interested in trying to put my work out there for people to purchase. I was just really interested in meeting other creative people initially and kind of finding out what kind of things they do. I'm on a really interesting path, and when we get a little deeper, I can explain some of the recent things that have come up that have been pretty interesting for me.
Mm-hmm. So what is it? Do you have any strategies? Because I'm not. I feel like I'm trying to take what you were sharing and see if I can distill it down to something like the guidance. And I think what I was hearing is one way to prevent burnout is to be doing things that you wake up excited to do. And the other is to not be so afraid to put things out before they're done. Was that kind of part of what you were saying, or did I miss your point?
Yeah. Here, I'll let me answer this with a quick story that is I really like to share.
That sounds great.
Yeah. So there's an Icelandic singer that many people have heard. Her name is Björk. And when I discovered her, I listened to her albums like over and over and over again. I was very fascinated by her songwriting and her voice and whatnot. So I have a DVD where she's getting interviewed, and she's talking about. She makes this question so simple. How did you find out that you wanted to play music? And she said, it's just so simple, because when I listen to music, I get goosebumps. And so it's like, and her son is interested in script writing. And so when he watches a movie or an interesting scene, it gives him goosebumps. And I've, as a psychology background, I've looked into this, and not everyone necessarily gets goosebumps from listening to music. For whatever reason, I really can get affected by music daily. Every morning I can throw on a song and you'll either be both my arms or goosebumps, or all four of my limbs, the back of my neck. And so that's something I can remember. This is hard to like quantize, but when I was a kid going to concerts, and I would, hear a band, and it would just completely move me, like it would motivate me so much that I would want to be able to give back at some point, but it's a difficult thing to measure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, what does success look like for you?
I think success for me would be especially networking and meeting other creative people, and then finding a way to get my work out. So, for example, I'm looking at writing a class for solo RPGs, for how to solo RPG as a beginner. And I found someone who's looking for that. And so I might be able to get on their platform. But I do want to share something that I'll just be really honest, because, I'm an only child, and I spend a lot of time by myself. And so I'm not really been a performer per se. I was always the quiet bass player in the back. The singer of my band or the guitarist, they would always be getting the gigs or talking to people and networking, but I just kind of showed up, did my thing. And so I have really dealt with quite a bit of just fear, or just being really afraid of putting my work or my thoughts out there. And I really recognize it's an irrational fear. It's literally being afraid of what strangers might think about me, like people I might never meet. Mm-hmm. And I think it comes from, imposter syndrome is pretty common for all creative people. But I've really lost quite a bit of time, I guess, if you look at it. When I started doing art, it took me at least a year and a half before I was able to post anything online. Mm-hmm. And I've also had a couple setbacks where, and I share this because it might have some value for other people who are out there. I was getting all this momentum and, starting to make some YouTube episodes, but then things in real life changed where my schedule just completely changed, and I took it really hard. I basically deleted everything offline and had to start from scratch, after recovering for a while and stuff. And so when you get into like tapping into your creative side, there's a lot I do in terms of like, I handwrite 3 pages in the morning every day to try to get my thoughts out. And I have this relationship with what I call my inner artist. And these concepts are in the artist way, but it's like this inner artist that's inside of you that is kind of like a child. It always wants to come out and play. It wants to play with, art or with music. And I have to like have a relationship and tell it sometimes, I'm busy today. We'll get back to that later. But what can happen is that inner artist can start really taking over. And I have found myself, getting very emotional or even having like some sort of a shutdown or a tantrum when things didn't work out and I couldn't go to an art gallery, or I had to stop working because I had to go pick someone up. And I really have to learn that life happens. I can't, it's kind of a perfectionist thing, but I have to be flexible and go with the flow of life. And so I recently have started kind of coming out and trying to really meet other people. And I've been pretty lucky. I've had some success, and it's just made the world of a difference to me. Just this also might kind of resonate with some listeners, but being an only child and creating can be a very solo thing. Like I spent a lot of time by myself doing things. And so I found myself pretty isolated because the people around me are not interested in some of the things I'm doing, and that's fine. But not having anyone to talk to, just does my work make any sense here, or does this have any value? And as more time passed, it became more and more difficult for me to reach out or to try to contact someone. And so that's something I really struggled with, because on one hand, the internet offers us just this unlimited, you can go to message boards, you can just put your ideas out there and stuff. But I found myself very hesitant and reluctant, and I just wanted to meet a couple people too. So I'm not wanting to necessarily be, like famous, but I wanted to be able to just have a kind of a quality relationship with some other creators. And it's taken time, but I feel like I've gotten really lucky recently where I've met some authors, and I reconnected with a musician recently. And so, yeah, I guess I'm trying to find success where I can be getting my ideas out and collaborating with people, and then see where things go from there.
Yeah, it's always lovely to have people to relate to in your work and your creativity. What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Oh, my 18-year-old self. Well, I have to say too that I grew up in the analog era, and we are now in the digital era, so it is a lot different. But I think the best advice I would give would to say, be open-minded. Be open to all genres of music and ideas and philosophy. I'll just share, because when I was younger, I was really into heavy metal as a musician. And I was a music snob. I will totally admit it. I went around thinking, well, if that music isn't like hardcore, it's just wimpy and I don't like it, And I had a friend like sit me down one time and said, Brent, you should just listen to rap. Just check it out first. Don't even, maybe you'll like it, but you should not close your mind to entire areas of music just because you have this preset notion. And funny enough, I actually started liking some rap, but I ended up getting into like a jazz improv band where I was playing the bass, and there was a drummer, a saxophone, and there was a rotation of MCs. So I was playing with rappers and I loved it. But before that, just a few years before that, I could not have seen that because I was just into, metal and fast music, and that's all there was. So, I'm very eclectic now, and I can appreciate all kinds of different types of music and whatnot. So opening your mind to just different styles of art, it's really important. There's that saying where, as a musician, what you listen to is almost as important as practicing your instrument. You need to listen to like the high quality, the masters, or be exploring for some hidden gem out there. It's part of the gig. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good advice, I think, regardless of your industry. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
What's something you are excited about in your business?
I am very excited because I am working on this class, this online course, and I don't think there are too many courses out that walk someone through how to play a solo RPG. And to be fair, there's no one answer to that. There's, you know, you can customize, and there's different types of solo RPGs. Now, online on message boards, almost every day, I will see people asking, how do you do this? Like, I have all the books, I have my character sheet. What do I do? Like, how do I start? And one of the challenges is that you're the player, you're also the dungeon master, and you're also the story writer. So you're playing 3 roles at the same time. And it's very different because you have to be able to still surprise yourself. You can't know where everything is in the world and stuff. So I stuck with it. It took me quite a while to get it to work out, but it was so rewarding. And I just didn't realize that people are very interested in this like art form. It's fairly new, and I think people are interested because they can play anytime they want. They can customize their world and explore moral dilemmas or different situations. And some people do it just for the game, like to play the game, enjoy it. Other people want to use it to write a story, or to even, to actually go that route and stuff. And then there's also lit RPG, which is when you have like a combat, and then it would be showing all the statistics going on, how many hit points, armor class, and stuff. And so I was exploring all of these. And so that's one of my challenges too, is to pick one spot and focus on it. But I feel like there's really is like a need for some sort of beginner class. And as I'm writing it, it's not as easy as I would have thought, because it gets very technical, where you have to really explain all these different aspects. I've taught tennis, and I've taught computers and math. And so like with tennis, for example, I've been playing tennis all my life. But if I teach someone, I have to really remember that they're starting from scratch. I can't assume that they know how to hold the racket or where to stand. And so with the solo RPG, it's very technical because I'm going over a lot of information. But I think it's very helpful because myself, when I was researching it, I was reluctant to ask questions because there are some people out there that are really experts, and they'll point you to articles and stuff. But I really felt overwhelmed. I still kind of do, but I felt overwhelmed when I just discovered solo RPGs, because there are really different areas that you can go into. And so I've kind of found my own comfort zone, and I feel like there's a lot of potential there to teach other people how to use it as a tool for some self exploration or exploring their characters and plots. And I think, just to wrap this up, again, I want to really work with other people. I love working by myself and doing my creative thing. Getting into the zone is kind of like being able to dance or sing when no one's around, which is, singing in the car when you're driving or dancing. But you have to really get into this free kind of a conscious state. And then ideas will come to me that I would not expect. That's another thing that I just am so excited to just learn how different authors put ideas together. Yeah.
For folks that are listening to this and they want to get involved or talk to you about RPGs or, learn more, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best place to find me would be on Substack, and that would just be realmzone, all one word, .substack.com. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your creativity with us. And I appreciate you taking the time today.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Really appreciate Brent and his tips on creative flow, experimenting without fear, and prioritizing inner alignment over algorithms, and how that can lead to authentic work and even help prevent burnout. If you want to dive deeper into solo RPGs or creative practices, check out Brent's work at realmzone.substack.com. Next week, join me in discovering how cultural physicist Avante Daniels is reshaping the way we think about culture, technology, and power, one unconventional strategy at a time. Thank you for tuning in to Business as Unusual. Remember, in this ever-evolving world of modern business, it's not about fitting in, it's about standing out. See you next time. Stay curious, stay innovative, and always keep it unusual. I hope you enjoy the show. I love making it. If you did enjoy it, consider hopping over to the review portion of the platform you listen on and letting other people know about it. Or share the episode or the entire show with a friend or subscribe to the show. Definitely reach out, get on my newsletter, follow me on social media, and let me know what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like to see in the future. Well, we love our guests. Appearance on the Business as Unusual podcast or any Bicurean consulting production is for information purposes only and is not to be considered an endorsement of their business practices, or character. Please properly vet anyone you find through this podcast and generally before you do any business with them. Thank you for listening.